There's a well-known Slovene saying which illustrates this trait. Naj sosedu crkne krava, če že sami nimamo. It translates as, may the neighbor's cow die if we don't have one. Therefore, being a Slovenian cow is not recommended. What's up, internet? Hello! Today we're gonna look into worst things about living in Slovenia. You and I, are gonna look at that now. For those of you who don't know, hi, my name is Barbara. I was born and raised in Slovenia, but currently I live in the United States. So the authors of this article are actually from United Kingdom. So let's look into 5 worst things about living in Slovenia. Number 1. Slovene grammar destroys neurons. This is gonna be so on point. As someone trying to learn Slovene, I applaud you. You are a hero. But I'm familiar with the family of Slavic tongues. There are several concepts which exist in the Slovenian language which are quite head-twisting for me. Those Slovenes are quick to cite the dual plural. Yes, we do say that. It's like, yeah. We have one, we have singular and plural, and then we have like 2 also. Like, that's like the first thing we will point out. As being foreigner-proof aspect of their language, for me, is the skloni, which I find most frustrating. You and me both, buddy. What? The ongoing mental tripwire is what I call the Slovene skloni matrix, a giant table of word-ending modifications which intersects 6 cases, 3 genders, 2 types of plural, and a single type of singular. Not to mention the different endings for adjectives in nouns that must be memorized and applied in order to end your words correctly depending on the context. Buddy, you and I are both in the same boat. I hated learning this. I hated with a burning passion. And it is the reason why I made so many skits on learning Slovenian or like teaching Slovenian and how frustrating it can be. It's definitely a topic that pops up the most about Slovenia. Second worst thing about Slovenia is death wish drivers, blind corner road hoggers. Too many Slovenian drivers have a terrible habit of straying from their lane on blind corners. Every time I drive to Brig, at least once during my journey, and normally several times, I will come around a corner to find an oncoming Slovenian driver with at least 50% of their car on my side of the road, forcing me to take evasive action. With this dangerous habit so common here, it is little surprise to me that Slovenia is ranked in the bottom third of European Union countries when it comes to road safety and has more than double the road deaths per million inhabitants compared to the UK. Okay, so where are we? Wow, we are below France, Estonia, Italy, and Luxembourg, and Belgium, and Czech Republic, and Hungary. The only people doing worse than us are Lithuania, Croatia, bratje in sestre. Kaj je to? Kaj je to? Greece, Poland, Latvia, Romania, and Bulgaria. That is very interesting because coming from somebody who lives in Los Angeles and the way people drive over here, like, I cannot wait to be back home and be on the road where not everyone is trying to kill me or push me further into traffic. So I guess I'm just comparing it to the absolute worst right now. But I had no idea that we're... Damn. Third worst thing about living in Slovenia, the habit of hate thy neighbor. Ooh, some shade will be thrown. It is a strange and somewhat sad situation here that Slovenians seem to have an unusually high frequency of neighborly feuds and disputes. Apparently, neighborly envy is deep-seated. There's a well-known Slovene saying which illustrates this trait. Naj sosedu crkne krava, če že sami nimamo. It translates as, may the neighbor's cow die if we don't have one. The longer version of the story goes something like this. There were 3 neighbors, each owning a cow. One day, the cow of the first neighbor dies. This makes the other two very happy. Then the cow of the second neighbor dies. This makes the last neighbor even happier still. Neither of his neighbors has a cow, yet he still does. But then he realizes that his now cowless neighbors will come begging for milk. So he then wishes for his own cow to die too, so that he doesn't have to give them anything. The rather sad meaning of the story is that Slovenians would rather see their own cow die before having to share anything with their neighbors. Therefore, being a Slovenian cow is not recommended. Now, I must point out that most of my neighbors have been very generous and very sharing. That was until I myself started having my own problems with one of the neighbors. I have personally experienced the unbelievable level of vindictiveness that a nasty Slovene neighbor can go to over the silliest and smallest things. So here I can say that I have had my fair share of very, very shitty neighbors. Like very shitty neighbors. I've lived in the village areas, I've lived in suburban towns, I've lived in towns, I've lived in the capital city. I moved a lot, and there were always neighbors that you kind of avoided. And every time I point out something bad or like negative about Slovenia, I get a lot of freaking hate from Slovenians and people just coming at my throat for like betraying Slovenia, and now, oh my god, I don't know, the industry will collapse and the country will implode into itself like a dying star and nobody will like us and duh. And it's like, well, first of all, like, calm down. So let me just point out a few of the instances. I have lived next to a neighbor who didn't like cats, and he kept complaining about the cats in the neighborhood, and he set out rat poison on his doorstep mixed into cat food. And that's how my first cat died when I was 8. Another instance was that I was fostering a dog and I didn't really know if I was gonna keep him. He just needed a place to go because the shelter was full and it was a trial thing. So I didn't immediately alert the landlord that I have a dog, but I didn't have to, because I think it was maybe 2 or 3 days of me having him. The neighbors alerted the landlord about me having a dog. Why? Because then the bill is €2 higher if you have a dog for water. And I actually got reported by 3 neighbors, and this was a lovely dog, silent dog, like a dog that really, like, that dog never barks, and we weren't like bothering anybody. It's not like his paw prints were everywhere or he was shedding everywhere or like he pooped in the hallways. None of that was happening, you know. I clean up after my pets. The only way they knew is because they saw me walking him outside several times a day. So I don't know if it's like typically Slovenian trait. I don't know. Here in the States, especially in LA, I've lived in also many places. None of the neighbors were into other people's business. Like, so yeah, if you are from Slovenia, let me know if you've had any issues with neighbors. Everywhere I went, I had also wonderful neighbors, you know, but there was always somebody. So I don't know. I don't know if this is a Slovenian thing or it's a small country thing. Like, let me know. Let me know. Fourth worst thing about Slovenia, service culture not very proactive. As with much of the rest of the continental Europe, table service is the norm here and going to the bar is generally not the done thing. However, in more than half of the places I go to, I find that although the table service upon first seating yourself is quite prompt, follow-up attention is much less so. Normally, you need to flag down the server rather than getting a proactive, would you like another drink, something else, the bill attentiveness. There are some places with great service, but there's definitely room for improvement in the many of cafes and bars I've visited. Okay, let's unpack that. I want to share a story here. I was a waitress for 6 years. That's what made me think that this guy is American, because Americans on more than one occasion after I would give them their bill would be like, I would tip you higher, but you only came to our table twice. And here's the difference between, I don't know how it is in UK, but I do know how it is in America. Here, when you sit down, like the waiter or the server will come to your table literally like 5 times during your meal. So even if you just started eating, is everything okay? Do you need anything else? Even if my glass has this much missing water, they will come and they will refill the water, and they will be at your table at least 5 times during the meal. I understand here the service industry is based on tips, so the more attentive they are, the bigger tip, or like the more you are served, the bigger chances they have of obtaining a bigger tip. And I completely understand that. In Slovenia, we have servers paid hourly wages. I don't know how it's now, but when I was a student, literally the majority of the bar staff was students, because that was one of the jobs that was easiest to come by, and with flexible hours and a lot of hours and blah, blah, blah. That's why I always worked in service industry, a lot of hours and easy to come by. And also I was kind of good at it. Yeah, that was the difference when I had American customers and when I had Slovenian customers. Slovenian customers didn't expect me to refill their water or ask if they want another cup of coffee or blah, blah, blah. That mostly only happened in the evenings, or if people are drinking alcohol. When the customer has, I don't know, this much beer left, you go to the table and you offer them another drink, or you ask them if they want something else. And that's sometimes, most of the times, people will be like, oh, yeah, you know what? Yeah. But if somebody is like drinking coffee, you're not gonna go to their table and be like, hey, is your coffee okay? Do you want another cup? Blah, 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 blah. Unless you know that the person is gonna be sitting there for a while. And I do believe that depending on where you go, if you go to smaller bars, first of all, you have students working, so like the majority, they don't give a shit. And that's just the way it is. They are there to make their money. They are not there to bend over backwards to make the bar their profit or whatever, or to rock the life of a customer and be the best server ever. The majority doesn't. I liked working in a bar, and we had a lot of regular customers, and I was very attentive because also I worked weekends and nights, and honestly the tip was really good because of that. And also because I just am a perfectionist and I need to be good at everything, and I need to do everything perfect, because otherwise I can't be happy about my own existence. But I imagine that the rest of the people are not like that. That's why you sometimes have service where I even noticed that, you know, if I go out for beer, you have to like literally go inside and be like, hey, can we pay over there at that table over there? Or be like, hey, can you bring me another drink? We're sitting over there, like over there with the, do you see the guy with the yellow, not that one, the other one. So that's kind of awkward, but I don't think it's like the worst part. I mean, unless like going to bars is like one of your favorite hobbies. 5th worst thing about living in Slovenia: unreliable tradesmen, no shows, and radio silence. It is not unique to Slovenia by any stretch, but I found it even more difficult than in the UK to get tradesmen here to actually turn up when they say they're going to turn up. I've had numerous dealings with various trades over the years, and more often than not, they have not appeared when they said they would. This has been especially frustrating when I have driven 2 hours to Koroška on the agreed date just to meet with tradesmen, only for a no-show, then radio silence, with my calls and texts going unanswered. This has led to my default position being to expect them to not appear at the agreed time and date, and the acceptance that things always take longer than I want and require more pestering than I'm used to. I didn't have a lot of experience with tradesmen, so I think it's just like a bit of a human nature, not Slovenian nature, that people just tend to be very unreliable. And that's about it. And the 6th thing, apparently they added at the very end of the article, it says, after 4 years, I'm adding a new one to this list, having to deal with the awful upravna enota. So this is gonna be good because, oh god, upravna enota has left me. I think upravna enota is the reason why I have gray hair at 30, okay? The author of this article calls it an embarrassment to Slovenia. I'm a strong advocate of Slovenia. I think it's a highly underappreciated and underrated country. I chose to come and live here. I love life here and I frequently write about a wonderful place it is. But the upravna enota is the one element of life in Slovenia that seriously brings it down in the ratings. The problem with upravna enota is not with the frontline staff. They too are victims of the system and are simply carrying out orders. The cost sits higher up. Somebody somewhere in the Slovenian government is responsible for how things run at the UE, where budgets are spent, how procedures are run. But for some inexplicable reason, they have decided against modernizing the upravna enota and ensuring staff are properly informed how to give consistent service. I'm just, as a Slovenian, this is funny because it's so true. Right now, upravna enota is a mess. Every time I have to go, I know that the chance of getting my task done depends on not only upon which upravna enota I go to. The Ljubljana upravna enota is notorious for being the worst in the country, but also which individual upravna enota officer I happen to get to on the day, and what mood they are in. I'm having war flashbacks to me trying to get a new ID or changing my address or literally anything. When trying to exchange my UK driving license for a Slovenian one, something I was not only entitled to do legally, but was told by the British Embassy it was something I must do due to Brexit, the lady at the Ljubljana upravna enota told me I couldn't swap it and that what I had been told was bullshit. Yes, she actually said bullshit. I later went to another upravna enota in a different part of the country with a friendly expat who knew the staff there, and we completed the process without issue. Side note, Slovenia loves rubber stamps. If there's a piece of paper that can be rubber stamped, then goddammit, rubber stamp it they will. In almost every situation of having to provide documents for inspection, if they are not rubber stamped, they will not be accepted as official. I find it quite hilarious that in Slovenia the rubber stamp is regarded as some sort of certificate of absolute authenticity. As if it would be impossible and unthinkable to counterfeit a rubber stamp. He also mentions that nothing can be done over the phone, not even online. You must physically go to upravna enota and speak to someone. Yes, that is also true. So there was an instance where Slovenian news article saying that from today, appointments at the upravna enota are no longer required. And the security guard bars his entry, saying that he does require an appointment. He shows him the article in Slovene that says, from today, no appointments needed. At first he resists, but then he kindly goes off to ask inside. He returns saying that he still needs an appointment. That, despite the article being out there for the public to see, it isn't official yet. I know how sometimes news is made public, but then the staff is not informed. That has happened with the modernization of buses, where you no longer, you can print a ticket, which is ridiculous. You buy a ticket online, you buy a bus ticket online, but you gotta print it. There were a few times when I didn't print it, and they almost didn't let me take that bus. I was like, I don't have a printer at home. What's the point of me buying an online ticket if I have to print it at home? But that's another part. They made that rule after the modernization, and they said that you scan the QR code at the bus, on the bus, and none of the drivers knew how to scan that QR code. Only one did, and then every time I did take a bus, the driver was like, what am I supposed to do with this? I was like, oh, you press this, and then you press this, okay, then you go here, then you go here, and then you hold my phone and you scan it. I was actually teaching the drivers how to scan the QR code. And also with the modernization of train tickets, when you can now buy them online, which is something that became a thing a year or two ago, you no longer have to buy a physical ticket at the train station or in person on the train. You can buy it online. The first few months of that were a disaster because none of the machines to scan the ticket were working. They were always down. They couldn't scan the ticket. So they were like, oh, I don't know what to do. I was like, oh, I don't know either. I have a ticket. I was like, oh, but I'm supposed to scan it. He was like, oh, but yeah, I don't know. It's not my problem. I paid for it. So in terms of modernization, we're slowly progressing. Improvements could be made. So definitely I understand his frustration with the Upravna enota. It's so hard to switch between Slovenian and English. But overall, this guy seems to love Slovenia. Otherwise, he wouldn't still live here for so long. So that's the whole article of worst things about living in Slovenia. Wasn't that terrible, huh, Slovenians? I know you were clutching your pearls. I know some of you were like just waiting on the edge of the seat and be like, when is she gonna say something I disagree with her? When is she gonna say something that I disagree with, huh? So I can hate her. Ooh, I wanna hate her so bad. I wanna shit on her, that filthy bitch. Insulting my country. And then probably some of you watched the video and were like, oh, actually, I kept waiting for you to say something I disagree with, but it's actually correct. True story. So that's it for this video. Let me know in the comments what you think. Is this accurate or not? Give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe. So that would be all. Thank you everybody for watching. Check out my social media, check out Ko-fi or Patreon for behind the scenes content to support this channel, or join the channel by joining the channel. And stay awesome, stay positive, love you all, and I'll see you in the next video.